So good evening, everyone. Okay, there we go. Good evening, everyone, and welcome back. This is session number 2 of a 4-part series on getting your business loan ready. Last week, we had the first part of the series was, identifying the sources of funding, like what type of funding it's available. And I was delayed last week with technology, so I thank everyone for being so patient with me. So today we're going to do drafting realistic cash flow projections. This is going to be a breeze. It's a short presentation, but it's actually, I think, very important to understand how to create a cash flow projection so that it is realistic, right? That you're not just putting numbers for the sake of putting numbers on your financial projections, okay? So I want to thank Suffolk County Community College and the Entrepreneurship Assistance Center for their resourceful partnership. I am in Tampa, Florida, and so I appreciate anytime Jennifer or Daphne at the college asks me to come in and do a workshop. So thank you so much, Jennifer, and thank you to the EAC team at Suffolk County Community College. And please don't forget the college has a mountain of resources for entrepreneurs through the EAC Center. So there's workshops on how to get your business ready for like capital access. There are workshops on marketing. There are workshops on accounting. They offer workshops on getting certified as a minority or a woman-owned business. So they have a number of workshops and series that can help your business grow. Okay, but I always tell my clients and those that I work with, this is your business. It's not Santos' business. It's not Jennifer's business. It's your business. That means that you have to be present, that you have to make the first call, that you have to follow through the appointments or sessions or homework or whatever it is that is put in front of you. If you want your business to succeed, you have to put in the work. A lot of people say, well, how easy it is to start a business in the United States when so many people come from all over the world, right, to this country. And I would say is actually fairly easy. All you have to do is register that name, pay the state their fee, and boom, you have a business. But the challenge is running a successful business. The logistics, the paperwork, that's just the stuff that you have to do anyways, right? But that doesn't guarantee that you have or that you're going to have a successful business. Any successful business has to look at the market, has to look at the customer, the audience, the strategies that they're employing, and very importantly, they have to understand the numbers because all business is about a numbers game. Okay, business is just that, a numbers game. If you understand the numbers, if you can play with those numbers and you can make educated guess, and you look at the market and you look at the trends in the market and you look at what opportunities are there and you take advantage of them, right? Not just looking, but prepare yourself so that you can take advantage of those opportunities, then yes, in the United States, there's a lot of opportunities for entrepreneurs and small business owners to succeed. All right. So with that said, let's dive in. Like I said, it's just going to be a short class, but hopefully it'll be meaningful to you. And if you have any questions, you can, raise your hand or write it on the chat. I think Jennifer is going to hang around here for a little bit to monitor some of the questions. And I really hope that you get something out of this tonight. Okay. And remember, this is session 2. We have 2 more. So if you enjoyed last week, I see a few of you are here. So thank you so much. And if you enjoyed today, please join us again next Thursday. All right. So we're going to talk a little bit about understanding cash flow projections and their purpose. Why do we have to do these projections? Estimating the revenue and the expenses accurately, that's really important. Building a 12-month cash flow projection. And then also using that cash flow projection to support your loan application. So we'll talk about all of those things. So what is a cash flow projection, you ask? Well, it's really easy. It's an estimate of the cash flow, the cash that goes in and the cash that goes out from your business over a period of time. Okay? Just what the name implies, cash flow, cash moves. Sometimes it moves in, that's what we like, and definitely it will move out, right? Because it doesn't matter if you sell 100 widgets or 10, you still got to pay the rent. So most likely you always have outflow. The goal is to really focus so that you have more of the inflow of revenue so that you can pay all the outflow. Those are your obligations, and then you could keep some of that money for yourself. Okay, it's different from profit because the cash flow projection focuses on the timing of cash. In other words, cash doesn't come in all at once. It would be nice, right? But it doesn't. It comes in over a period of time. It also is influenced by how much marketing, how much promotion you are doing with your business, what are the connections that you are establishing with your business and with other businesses and other partners, so that you can, grow your business. So it's a timing. There's a timing element to this, and then of course, when you talk about a cash flow projection, think about how lenders use this cash flow projection that you're creating to assess whether you can borrow money, right? And whether you can repay a loan. Today, we're not going to talk about loan repayment, but there is a class, maybe I think it's the fourth one, where we're going to talk about that. So that's basically a cash flow projection. It is an educated guess. Let me repeat that. It is an educated guess of how much money you expect to come in and how much money is going to go out. That's what that is. And it's an educated guess. As you go about your business and as you grow and as you have more tenure and more history, you're going to see how the cash flow projection actually plays out. Was it accurate? Were you way off than what you anticipated? And that's when you take the time to adjust, right? That's when you take the time to make sure that, okay, I overestimated or I underestimated, or maybe something different happened, right? There was some sort of anomaly in the marketplace that allowed your business to all of a sudden, resurface and have more money coming in than you expected. But you always want to look at the historical data of your business so that you can continue to create your cash flow projections. At the beginning, it's a little bit hard because let's say if you're starting your business and you really don't know, nothing is guaranteed, right? So you put your best foot forward, and you've crossed all your T's, dotted all your I's, you have your marketing campaign, you have your business card, you have a wonderful product that you're selling, you have a website, maybe you have a brick and mortar, maybe it's a mobile type of business. You did all of these steps, right? And all of these things to get yourself ready. You're hoping for the best. That's what this is. It's just a game where you are hoping for the best. And when you're starting your business, it's really hard to really determine or point out how much money you're gonna sell, right? How much product you're gonna sell, how much money you're gonna bring into the business. And so that's why it's really important to understand your target audience. Who are you selling to really understand the location that you're selling, whether it's online, whether it's in public, whether you're doing it with other companies. You need to understand that, because that's going to be the determining factors for you to look at to determine how much money you're going to make in your business. Again, it's harder when you start, but once you get the wheels moving and you create a historical representation of your business, then you can become wiser and smarter about how you promote and how you're spending your money. And then you'll see a better traction of the inflow and the outflow of your business. All right. So hopefully that's clear. There's some key components of a cash flow. So you have your starting cash balance. And that's really the balance that you start with either when you start your business, right? You're supposed to have X amount of dollars there for you to start the business, and to really, that's really a cushion. That's what that is. That money when you start the business is a cushion. Why? And it's necessary, and it's really necessary. And why do we need that money? Because when you open the doors to your business, people don't know you yet. You know, they're already loyal to other brands, other companies, right? They're already comfortable where they're buying. So you have to make noise with your marketing and your promotion and entice people to come and buy from you. And your marketing strategy has to reflect that unique selling proposition. What is it about you and your product that is good, better, right? Or is different than others, so that people stopping by can say, oh, I like to try that, right? And as they try that and they like your product, hopefully, right? And they have a great experience with you, they will become loyal customers. They begin to patronize you more. They'll tell others, hey, look, Santos has this business. I went over there. He treated me kindly. He gave me extra resources. I just, so all of those things will help build your business, right? And again, at the beginning, you have to do a lot of that because that you're starting the business. People don't really know you. And so you cannot expect that at the early stages of your business, you're going to make all of this money to cover all of your expenses, right? So let's say that you have operating expenses of $5,000 a month. I'll use that as an example. And you cannot expect that the first month in business, when you open the door, you're going to make $5,000. That would be a lucky strike, right? And you will have to have something remarkable. And you have to have done a lot of, promotion, to get that the first month out, to roll it out like that. So, because we know we've studied this, we have seen it with thousands of businesses. We know it takes time. It takes time for the business to really begin to have that steady cash flow in and out, in and out. It takes time. And because it takes time, you want to have some cash at the beginning of the business for those cushions, for those months where you're still like promoting and you're still trying to build your brand. All right. So you want to have, if like I said, it was 5,000. So if your operating expenses are $5,000 to start, when you to run your business, I mean, if it's $5,000 to run your business, then at the start of your business, you want to have at minimum 3 to 6 months. Ideally, would be 6 months, right? So ideally, you want to have $30,000 in the bank. And that would be considered your starting cash balance. And that 30,000, right, that covers 6 months of operations at $5,000 each month. That's the money that is going to sort of protect you so that you don't go out of business before you start a business. And so, and as money, as you're doing your promotion and as money is rolling in, you're going to see that cash, that starting cash balance, it begins to reduce, but at some point it begins to increase again. And that's what we want, because we want to be able to recover all of our investments. So the first key component is your starting cash balance. The second one is the inflow of cash. And that could be in the form of whatever sales you're doing. Maybe you were able to get a grant for the business. Maybe you were able to secure a loan, or maybe a family or a friend invested in your business. And so, all of those are considered, revenue, inflow to the business. And then you have the third component, which is outflow, cash outflow. Again, cash inflow is money coming in, cash outflow is money out. And usually the reason why you have money coming out of your business is because you have to pay expenses related to the business. And you also have to pay yourself, right? Your salary, your owner's draw. So outflow covers expenses, loan payment, inventories that you have to purchase, your salaries, etc. And then you have the ending cash balance. So we started with starting cash balance, and we ended with ending cash balance. You always want to see your cash balance at the beginning of the month and at the end of the month, because that's also going to help you understand how much money you have for what? The next month. Your ending cash balance in month one begins your starting cash balance in month two. Your ending, your starting, and then your starting cash balance in month two, you will add or subtract whatever net you have from the inflow and outflow of the business, and that'll be your ending cash balance. So always know that you have cash balances at the beginning of the business and cash balance at the end of your business. And what we want is we want to be able to have enough ending cash balance over the life of the business so that we can, go on vacation, take some of that money and buy a house later, maybe invest in some stock for the future, etc. All right. So when you talk about cash flow projection, it's just forecasting the revenue, right? The revenue and forecasting the expenses. And the first thing I will say is make sure that your forecasting, that your projections, right, are realistic. You cannot assume that you're going to start a business tomorrow, next month, and then that business is going to generate $1 million. That's really unrealistic. It almost never happens, not even with big old companies, okay? So the other thing that you want to be realistic, keep your feet on the ground, is about the projection of that over the first year and second year, okay? You can't presume that you start out with zero as a new business, and at the end of the year, in December, you have $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 in the bank. And I mean, again, for the most part, business don't run like that, right? Because you need traction, you need to be able to inject a lot of money into marketing so that people can recognize who you are. They want to try you. They want to be convinced that they should be spending their money with you. They want to be able to refer other people, but that doesn't happen overnight. Okay. And that's why a lot of businesses fail, because they don't have the ability to stay over a long period of time. They don't have that cash at the start of the business, right? That cushion money, so that, they can, sustain those months that are very thin with sales, right? No money's coming in, or very little money, or it hasn't reached a level where you're now breaking even, which we're going to talk about next week, okay? The break-even point. So make sure that you keep your feet on the ground. Make sure that your estimates are realistic. The other thing is consider seasonality. So seasonality is basically, when do products sell at the highest, at their peak, right? So that you can also do your marketing and your promotion pre-seasonality to get people, excited about the sales and the promotions that you're going to be putting forth. Because it makes no sense to start promoting your Mother's Day special the day before Mother's Day. You want to do that a few weeks before, right? You want to start telling people, hey, I have something special for your mom because your mom is special. So you want to come to me to buy your special mom, that special something, that I have to sell. And so you want to be able to do those things in advance. And you have to think about seasonality. There are things that happen all the time, like Christmas, Thanksgiving, Mother's Days, Valentine's Day. I'm just mentioning American holidays and dates that people are common with, when most promotions take place. The 4th of July, Labor Day, Memorial Day, like all of those are dates within season, right? And then there's other seasons, like, for example, going back to school, which usually happens in August. You have a lot of sales in the month of August, July, if you're in other states like Florida. Back to school begins in July. In northern states, it's back to school begins sort of like in August. And so you have this season where people will spend more money, and you want to be aware of that. Why? Because your cash flow projection should reflect, right, the sales that are going to happen, the increase in sale, that boost that you want, right, that should be reflected in your cash flow projection. The other thing is you want to look at one of these two things, either the historical data, if you've been in business already for a while, let's say you've been in business more than a year, you should have some data related to the previous year's sales, right? And every year you're going to create historical data. So you either want to look at the historical data, or you want to look at the market research, especially if you're a new business that is launching. You want to look at market research. What does the market say about this industry, about the people? Are they buying more? Are they buying less? Are they, like, you have to be able to look at all of that when you are creating your cash flow projections, okay? And I have market research here because for most startups, they don't have a historical, account of a business. And so you want to look at the market itself. You want to look at market in terms of industry and what others are doing and how others are selling. And then you also want to look at market in terms of people. What are the tendency? What are the behaviors in the marketplace that is either driving or pulling back those consumers to spend money? Okay. And then you want to look at your price and your customer volume assumptions. They matter, okay? And pricing, because when you are doing your cash flow projection, there's going to be several things that have to align. One is your pricing needs to match your strategy, and your pricing needs to match your market, right? You cannot expect to sell, a product that is a low budget item in a high price neighborhood. So the pricing has to really align with the customer or the potential customers, as well as the pricing strategy, as well as the overall market where you are selling. And so you have to be kind of cognizant of that. And also the customer volume. There are times, and this is sort of like back with seasonality, there are times where you're going to have more people, right, coming in through your doors. And I don't know how many of you have experienced this. You go to a store and suddenly, like the store is sort of empty. You walk in and 5 minutes later, you notice that everyone else walked in behind you, right? All of a sudden you have all this volume. You want to be aware of that, and that's why you want to look at really at the industry, and you want to see the market, because there might be times where there's a high peak in sales throughout the month, right? And for some people, the beginning of the month or the middle of the month is actually, when they spend money. Why? Because either they get paid during those times. Almost, I don't know, getting paid weekly is not standard for every industry. So people start, spending money every other week, or at the beginning or at the end of the month. So you want to look at how much volume of customers you're going to have during certain days of the month. You want to be able to account for that during your cash flow projections. The next, so that was revenue forecasting, right? That's the money that is coming in. Then the other thing you want to be aware, which is part of this cash flow projection, is your operating expenses. And then you have your fixed costs, and those are, you have to pay them no matter what. Fixed costs are your rent, your insurance, your salaries, the bookkeeping fees. No matter whether you sell 1,000 widgets or you sell 10, right? You can't go back to the landlord. You can't, I can't pay you the rent this month because I didn't make any sales. They don't want to hear that, right? You want to make sure that you have money to pay for all of those fixed costs that you have to pay no matter what. There are also variable costs, and variable costs usually they're called cost of goods sold, because they are related, they're costs related to the goods, right, that you're selling. And these variable costs include like materials, some of the utilities, commissions, etc. You want to know which are your variable costs for your business and which are your fixed costs. And it's different for every business, because some businesses may be producing, right, what they sell themselves, and in that case they're going to have higher cost of goods sold. That particular number is going to be higher, and it's going to be directly associated with the number of units they produce and sell. Other people will have a different type of cost of goods sold in terms of amount, because it may be called, like inventory that you're purchasing, but it's still an expense that you have to, incur in order for you to be in business. And then there are service businesses, and service businesses rarely have variable costs unless they're doing something for a particular person or client as part of the business. So you want to be aware of fixed costs, identify which are those fixed costs for your business and which are the variable costs for your business. Make sure that in your operating expenses, when you're calculating all of these, when you're putting together all of these assumptions and all of these estimates, make sure that you include, the taxes that you have to pay. If you are borrowing money and you have a loan to repay, make sure that that loan payment is in there. And also make sure that you include your owner's draw. In other words, what you are going to keep if it's not already part of your salary, okay? And then you want to do this month by month with real estimates. So, and that's a little bit hard. For some expenses are difficult to calculate, but some are very easy. Like your rent, maybe you pay $2,000 a month. That's not going to change, right? So that'll be $2,000. That's a fixed cost to your business every month. The light, even though that's a fixed cost, it may vary in terms of how much you have to pay every month, but you have to pay it. So you want to basically do sort of like a very close estimate of how much you're going to pay, how much these expenses are going to be, so that you can include them in your cash flow projection. And then there's just a few steps to build it. There are different types of tools that you can use. But you start with the beginning cash balance. We already said that, right? And then you add your projected inflows, right? What's coming in, the sales revenue, right? And then you subtract from that sales revenue the outflow, the expenses that you have to pay. You want to be able, as you are doing this step by step, that you track your net cash flow. In other words, what is it, how much you're keeping, right? Or how much of that money that is coming in, it stays within the company after all the expenses are paid. And then you also want to calculate the cumulative cash position. And at the end of the month, you'll be able to see that. Remember, we talked about you have cash balances at the start of the month and you have cash balances at the end of the month. So cash flow, usually you lay it out by month. I'll show you an example where you have rows equals categories and columns equals month or monthly cost. And you want to track the total inflow and the total outflow with the ending balance. And it should be easy to update on a monthly basis. If you use Excel, it's really easy. It's just a matter of habit and discipline. And that's perhaps the one thing that is most tedious to people, that they don't have a disciplined behavior towards their finances. And they just keep putting it off. And before they, they're like, oh my God, like, I don't even know how much money I have. I don't even know how much money I made. And it's important for you to do this exercise of creating your cash flow projection, because you want to know at the end of the month, right, how much money you can count on for the next. You want to do this also at least for the first year, right? At least a 12-month cash flow projection, because that's going to guide you. It's going to guide your decisions. It's going to help you like steer towards your north in terms of what you have to buy, in terms of how much you have to promote, in terms of whether you're staying on track, and also in order for you to evaluate whether what you're doing is working. Does it have an effect, right, on your bottom line in terms of the profit that you get to keep every month. Okay. Excuse me. And this is an example. This is an example of, let's say, a company selling two different types of product, and they're estimating product one revenue for July, $500, $250 for product two. And then here they have no loan, but they do have a loan coming in September, and that's registered as inflow, money that is coming in to your business. And then you wanna create your cash flow projections, sort of like this, where you have 12 months laid out in front of you. You're estimating your revenue for each product that you're selling. If you have, some people have like 100 products because they either sell retail or some sort of grocery style business. Then you want to categorize them, right, and create averages. If you have a point of sale system, that helps you, especially when you have multiple lines of products. And that basically helps you create like all of your inventory, all of the products. You were able to track all your sales, all of your expenses, all of them. That's ideally what you want to set up for your business. So it looks like this. I'm going to show you another example, which is a little bit more intricate. Here it is. And this is Anna's Limited Beach Bags. Okay, and this is the cash flow projection from July 2025 through June 2026. And what you see here is your starting cash balance at $5,000. Okay, at $5,000. Notice that $5,000, when you look at the expenses, that's more than 3 months worth of expenses. Remember, I said earlier, you want to have minimum 3 to 6 months worth of cushion, right? So that you can cover your expenses. So in this case, this business started, Anna's Limited Beach Bag started with $5,000, which is enough for her to be able to pay her expenses. You notice that her expenses are they're few. She has merchant account fees, which is that 3% that the credit card companies charge you when every time you swipe that card, or somebody swipes that card in for payment for your business. You get charged, between 2.7 to 3.5%. I just use 3%. That fee varies from vendor to vendor, but that's a fee that you have to cover. A lot of people forget about that. And then at the end, they're like, oh my God, I have, where's my money going? Well, it's right there, right? You just forgot to account for it. So this particular business, basically, she sells limited, she sells beach bag. It's Anna's Limited Beach Bag. So they're limited because they're like custom made handbags. So no one beach bag is going to look the same. It's always going to sort of like have that little variation. So that's why she calls it Anna's Limited. And so she sells her products at different street fairs, and she goes out, twice a month. And she pays $150 a month to be at these fairs Saturdays and Sundays, and where she sells sometimes between 150 to 300 bags a month. And she has some marketing expenses that are related to the business. She put that in $100. I'm assuming that's like social media postings to let her audience and friends and others know that she's gonna be at that particular location, the street fair or whatever it is. And then she has $50 worth of supplies to cover, like, receipts and labels and things, shopping bags, all of that. Every time that she goes to these events, every other, twice a month, she has to, has some supplies. So she's accounting for, again, merchant account services so that she can cover the amount of money that she has to pay the credit card company, the market fees, the marketing, the supplies. And that's $390 expenses. Notice there's no salaries here. And this is not like the full financial planning projection class or the profit and loss statement, but it is just a good start for you to start seeing, what are some of those elements that you should be, looking out in terms of putting it into your financial projections. But you definitely want to include your salary or what is called the owner's draw. Basically, the owner's draw is money that the owner takes from the business every month, or every, how many weeks, to support himself. That's like his or her salary. In this case, I know that Anna basically just takes an owner's draw every month. So when you look at the projections, you see the first thing is starting cash balance $5,000. So she has enough cushion. She estimated $3,000 in sales for the month of July. And this is based on historical. In other words, she's been doing this for a while. So she already anticipates during the month of July and August and September, these months are going to, where she's going to sell the beach bags. There's a 30%, if you see the line that says COGS right under sales, that is cost of goods sold. Okay, cost of goods sold. And she's estimating that to be at 30% of whatever the sales that she, that's coming in. So that's basically for every bag, she spends $6. She sells them at $20. She spends about $6 per bag. So that's dopo $13, $6 per bag. So that's 30% of 3,000 is 900. So that's the first expense that you see here, the cost of goods sold. And then you add that expense to the 390, right? Because those are all expenses. So you have $3,000 coming in minus $900 in cost of goods sold. So she has a balance of $2,100 left. From there, you subtract the $390 that are part of the expenses, and she has a net revenue of $1,710. And from that, she's calculating 21% in taxes, which leaves her with a gross profit of $1,351 for the month. Okay, mind you, she's only working 2 days, 4 days out of the month. So two market fairs, Saturdays and Sundays, 2 Saturdays, 2 Sundays, and she's netting pretty good for 4 days. And then from there, she takes her money, whatever that is. I didn't get that far with her calculation, but it's basically you have the basics here, or the basic assumptions, so that you can create your own. And then after that, you have the ending cash balance. And this is something I like to see. You want to see this, you want to aim for this. The ending cash balance here is actually higher than the starting cash balance. So we started with 5,000, and we had expenses. And after all those expenses, and we have revenue, we were left with 1,351, and that gets added to the $5,000. So that's why you have 6,351. Your starting cash balance plus your gross profit, your net profit. 1,351, that's 6,351. That becomes then the next month, the month of August, that's going to be the beginning balance. And then it becomes repetition, okay, or repetitive. You calculate the sales for the next month, the cost of goods sold, you minus the cost of goods sold from your sales, you have a gross revenue or gross sales, then you have your expenses, then you basically pay your taxes, and then whatever there is left, it gets added to the beginning cash balance, and then that ending cash balance is now becoming the next month beginning cash balance. Okay, so you can notice that the 6,351 is the same as this. The ending is the same as the beginning. See, it all has to make sense. So what you want to do is you want to be able to, again, create cash flow statements that are realistic, that take in consideration historical data or market research to guide your decision, to guide your estimates as to where you're going to point in the direction of, how much money I'm going to make. Okay. I'm going to leave it. Oh, this part here is, I created this because it's sort of like a summary, right? Of this whole thing, and we can summarize it as follow. We sold 2,620 units, those beach bags, during the year, and that's basically $20, right? 2620 times $20, and you have your total revenue, your total expenses, your net income, the monthly units, the average of your monthly revenue, and the average of your expenses, and the average of your net income, and then your break even. Next week, we're going to talk about break even, but this is just a reflection of this. Hold on a second. Of this. Okay. So, it's just a summary. Common things or common mistakes to avoid is overestimating, right? So make sure you're careful. I'd rather you be conservative. Be conservative. If you happen to sell more, well, wonderful, right? That's the icing on the cake. We want that. But don't overestimate. In fact, be conservative. The more conservative you are with your sales, the better it's going to be for you long term, because then you are going to project your expenses based on those sales, right? You're going to sort of keep it tight in terms of the expenses. So more money comes in, then that means more money that you get to keep, right? So don't overestimate. Ignoring seasonal changes is another mistake. So, you have a promotion, Valentine's is a month away. What do? You start putting Valentine promotion. You ignore it, and then you wait until the last minute where you're not going to have a successful campaign. You're not going to make as much money as you should have had, right? One thing that this country is so famous for, infamous for, is the moment Christmas, the Christmas season is over, the very next week, you see the retailers start putting what? Hearts and bears, and everything starts changing from, whatever color, green and that we had for Christmas and the holidays, to red and pink, right? They don't waste any time. They want to make sure that that Valentine's is coming, that you got to get that chocolate, heart box, that you got to get that teddy bear, that you got to start thinking about your loved one, your friends, your coworker, your mom, whatever it is, right? They want to, like, that's sort of like the focus. And they make billions of dollars. Why? Because they don't wait. They don't skip the season. They're on top of it. The other mistake is mixing expenses like taxes or loan payments. You want to have those separated. Notice how I had taxes as a separate line. You don't want to have it inside your expenses, because taxes, even though it's an expenses, even though it's an expense to your business, right? It is not an expense that you can reduce to get a credit. So you want to separate your expenses, which can be sort of like used as part of the credit that you get for before you pay your taxes. So, and then the other thing is not having enough cushion during slow periods. So if and I had this conversation with one of my clients earlier this week, he said to me, these summer months of June and July, it's really hard for me. And he has a food business. And he says it's really hard. And I was like, was kind of taken aback, but I was like, really? Why? I would think like, you get more business. He's like, no, a lot of people travel, they leave, people eat more at home, or, they just, if they go to the beach, they're out there eating. So, you have less. He was telling me that he has less traffic during the months of June and July. And then he said, then he picks up right back with force in August and September. And then he's busy all the way through, February, March. So his slow months for him are like April, May, June, July. Those are his slow months. So you want to understand where are going to be your slow months, because you want to have enough cushion, right? You want to have enough cushions for those slow periods. And you don't want to have to like pay with your personal credit cards, or build a mountain of bills because you don't have enough cushion. So those are things that you should definitely avoid. And you want to use this cash flow projection to tell the lender, hello, I have a business that generates X amount of dollars, and that's why you should give me money, because I can generate enough money to repay you. Because banks are not in the business of lending money to people who cannot pay. They are in the business to lend money to make money. And so they want to see whether you, as a business owner, have the capacity in dollars and cents to repay them if you're borrowing a loan. In this case here, where is it here? You can clearly see that this business generates enough money if they wanted to borrow, $10,000, $20,000 to, let's say, Anna decided to, in addition to doing beach bags, she wanted to sell sarongs, right, for the ladies to go to the beach. Or maybe she wants to get into selling hats, right? Which is a different product, but beach hats are, common. They go with the beach bag. So if this business wanted to pursue a product line extension, basically selling something else that is in line, with what she's already successfully selling, then she could go to the bank and say, look at my numbers, right? And the bank, the lender, will be able to see, oh, wow, out of the $3,000 that you made in July, you were able to keep, 1,350. That's 1,351 divided by 3,000, and that's about 40% that she's keeping. In other words, for every dollar, she's keeping 45 cents. All right. And that's a good number, because banks want to see that you keep at minimum 15 to 25 cents. At minimum, that you keep 15 to 25 cents of what you make after you've paid all your expenses. Okay. And so this is another reason why you want to have, realistic cash flow projections, so that you can go to the lender and show them, make an appeal. Look, this is how much my business is going to make. I'm going to have X amount of dollars at the start of the business to carry me for the first few months, so that, because I know the business is going to be difficult, but I have a plan. I have a strategy. I'm doing this, that, the other, to get people's attention. I'm going to be doing these promotions. And I know that I'll be able to carry through these months until money begins to flow more, with more frequency and in higher quantities. And then when you look at my cash flow projection, you'll see that by the end of the first year, I will have made 25 cents, 30 cents on the dollar, right? And I'm keeping that money that stays in the company. So those are the arguments that you want to make. But in order for you to do that, in order for you to make that argument, in order for you to be able to convince your lender, you have to know what all of this means. You have to put in the time to do realistic cash flow projections, to understand your expenses. What is it that you have to absolutely must pay every month, and you have to be able to also pay yourself. Okay. Nobody wants to lend money to companies that don't pay their employees, and you're the first and main employee. So let's keep that in mind. Okay. Some tips: you can use Google Sheets. You can use Excel to keep track of your expenses, to do your cash flow projection. Okay, I will email Jennifer, and she can email you the template that I have. It's pretty easy, you know. There also, by the way, you can say, well, I don't know, I'm not good with numbers. There's tons of videos online. YouTube, it's a university. You can just go in there and say, okay, how do I do this? The other tool that is becoming very popular is AI, artificial intelligence. You can use ChatGPT. If you ask the right questions, if you present the right scenario, it could help you create projections for your year, right? Based on the information that you provide. But you cannot use AI and say, create a business plan with 12 months projection for a coffee shop business. You can't do that because it's going to draw information from that is public, and it's going to give you something that it's really unrealistic, and you'll have to do more work with that particular output that the AI gave you, because you shouldn't trust all of the information just because it's there. You have to do your own homework, and you have to be able to do your numbers, and you have to be able to understand what it means when it says 10 plus 10 is 20. You have to know the basic at the very least. But AI is a great tool once you ask the right questions and once you put in the right information to help you create cash flow projections for your business. Okay? Pull quotes and real numbers from operations. Make sure that you get those estimates as close as possible. Like, you know what you're going to pay for your rent, what you're going to pay for your insurance, travel, etc. The other thing is you want to update your cash flow projections on a regular basis. You want to do that regularly. You don't want to like wait a whole year and just say, oh, well, I need to look at what I did. No, every month, at the end of the month, take a couple of days, look at your numbers and see how your projections panned out, right? So that you get a better feeling, a better understanding of where the business is moving. And you'll be able to keep that in a practice, right? In a disciplined practice, so that you can, you know, as often as you can, go back, look at your numbers, compare, and adjust and be able to, you know where your money is going, because that's really important. You want to know where the money is going, but you also want to know where the money is going. Update that regularly. And of course, if you need advice, if you need help, there are plenty of advisors. Suffolk County Community College offers assistance. They have a number of consultants in-house that you can work with. So please ask for help. You don't have to go at this alone. They also offer some other workshops on using Excel and using QuickBooks and all of that to help you better manage the finances of your business. But I say this again, it is your business. In no moment you heard here say Santos business. It is your business. That means that you have to make sure that you put in the time, the effort, so that you can do this, and you're not alone. That's the good thing. You're not alone. The other thing that I want to remind you, okay, I don't want to end with a somber feeling. I want to remind you something. You are in business, or you will be in business, right? And you have something that people want to buy. That's a wonderful thing. Think about this. Someone will be willing to give you money for what you have to offer. That's amazing. That's amazing. You have something that other people are willing to pay for. And what you have to do is basically get yourself ready, do the work, and go out there and smile and get, get the customers and make the money. But that is a wonderful thing. We live in a country where capitalism reigns, right? So you have to sell. You can sell anything. You can sell anything. Literally, you can sell anything, and there will be people who will buy it. Okay, and so that's the wonderful thing. You're in business because you saw a need, you saw an opportunity, you saw that people want it, you decided you're going to do it, you decided you're going to give it to them. So now get ready, do your financial statements, do your projections, get your numbers in order, and go out there and make lots of money. right? And I think that is the end of this presentation. So with that, I will then ask if there are any questions that we can address. Go ahead and either raise or ask the questions. No questions. Wow, I left everyone speechless. Okay, let's see. Jennifer, did you see any questions? If not, then we can wrap it up.
No, we don't have any questions in the Q&A or in the chat.
Okay, well, that's all, folks. That's it for me. Thank you so much. I'm Santos Morales, and I'm happy to be here next Thursday. So I hope to see you then.
Thank you,
Good night.
everybody.
Thank
Have a great
you.
night. See you next week.
Thank you.
Thanks.